Hey, this is Craig Mabbitt of Dead Rabbits, and you're watching Couch Riffs Podcast.
Yeah, baby.
Got it.
Hello, folks. It's your pal, Mike Squires. This is the Couch Riffs Podcast, episode 289 or maybe 290. I don't know. But I don't think you care what number it is. I think you more care about who my guest is, and that is Craig Mabbitt. Some of you will be surprised to know I never met him before. Probably fans of the band will, when you listen to this, you'll be like, why are you asking him questions like that? Well, because I didn't know him. I was getting to know him. So hopefully we struck on some subjects that he hasn't talked about much before, and you've learned some new things about him. If you are unfamiliar with Craig and his work and you're a listener of the podcast, hopefully you enjoy this conversation. We talk a lot about just life. We talk a lot about substance abuse and sobriety. So we for sure lean into that here. So I hope that does not fatigue you, but it's, again, if you are struggling with drugs or alcohol, there's a better way. Not doing it, I know when you're in it, seems impossible, but it really isn't. And it not only is it not impossible, it's so much more possible. It being life, it is so much more possible without the presence of drugs and alcohol. So, if you need help, seek it out. There is help out there for you. If you're a musician, go to organizations like Music Cares. In Seattle, you could reach out to Smash. If you're having problems, you could reach out to me even. I might not be the best person to reach out to if you're having a crisis moment, because I'm not immediately available a lot, but do it anyway. If you need to. Don't just fucking pester me because you got drunk. But reach out if you need real help. Anyway, I had an amazing time talking with Craig. I really, really enjoyed him. I really, really like him, and I had no idea of what kind of person I was picking up at El Corazon when I drove down there. I had no idea. I had never watched another interview. Craig is the singer for a very popular metalcore band called Escape the Fate, who I'm also not really familiar with. I think I swear we've done festival dates. Loaded had done some festival dates with them. And he fronts his solo/side project, Dead Rabbits. And they are currently out on tour. Craig is on tour supporting his new record, which I'm sure that I mistakenly called an EP during our conversation. But he's out touring with Wednesday 13, Stitched Up Heart, and Tola. I remember, man. This other band. And they will be touring through the end of April. So go out, support live music, go see the bands. If you're a fan of heavy music, go see them. Support live music, support the arts. Right now, this is I hesitate to call it an interesting time. This feels like a dangerous time, but if you're a fan of the arts, I think it's a dangerous time. Support the arts if you're able to, in whatever way you can. I hope you enjoyed this conversation, Craig. Like I said, very, very cool, grounded fella. As always, if you are enjoying the Couches Podcast, please support us on Patreon. Thank you to folks who are supporting. Thank you to folks who support music and the arts. And as always, don't forget the golden rule. And you know the golden rule. Treat people the way you want to be treated. That's really the only way. It's the only reasonable way. Just don't be a dick. Craig, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
We started having pretty, almost immediately, deep conversations about
Yes, we were.
About existing.
Extraterrestrials and existence and the Matrix and how ignorance is bliss.
Life choices.
Life choices, yeah.
And we even touched on how ridiculous it is to have a career in music.
Yeah, I feel that way sometimes when I get into deep thought about what the purpose of all of this is. I'm like, well, what am I doing to
Right.
better the world? And in some simple sense, I guess I can find some joy that if I'm giving somebody a nice, entertaining night so that they can have a bit of escapism from whatever they're going through in their life, then that's my purpose, and that feels pretty good.
And there's some importance in that.
Mm-hmm.
You're from Phoenix.
I am from Phoenix, yeah.
Born and raised?
Born, raised on and off. I was a military kid, so we moved around a lot. If my dad was stationed somewhere within the U.S., so
would that make him Air Force?
He was Army.
Army.
Mm-hmm.
What's in Phoenix? What Army base?
Well, there's Luke Air Force Base, which is where I bagged groceries as my first job when I was 14 at the commissary. But I know I lived in Colorado for a little bit when I was younger. We lived in Virginia for a bit, Indiana, but it was always somewhere else back to Arizona, And then it was, I believe, halfway through 6th grade is when I finally stopped always being the new kid, and we moved back to Phoenix, and I was there until I got on the road and started touring with bands around 16, 17.
Interesting. I have a similar timeline as far as moving goes. Let me ask you this question, because it didn't even occur to me until recently. I am very comfortable on the road, and when I'm getting ready for a tour, I have a lot of not anxiety, but I'm anticipation, impatience to be there. And when I'm there, everything slows down for me. And it didn't even occur to me, but I went to 12 or 13 grade schools.
Yeah.
And I moved a lot, and I became really comfortable with it.
Yeah, you're used to it.
Do you have is that a thing for you?
It is, and the funny part is that I remember being that young age and going, man, when I'm old enough, I really just want to live in that one place, like the smaller towns where everybody knows each other. And I have that, the same group of friends for years, and I've been in the same house, and it's just like steady, secure sort of existence is what I wanted. And before I even was of age, I was traveling around the world and playing music. So I didn't get that at all, but it was easy to fall into because I was the oldest of 4. We didn't grow up with a lot of means for stuff. So there was a lot of times where we were living with multiple other family members.
You trying to say your dad didn't get rich in the military?
No, did not get rich in the military.
Get out of here.
There's a couple times where it was one shared room between me, my brother, my 2 sisters, both of our cousins, just all on bunk beds. So that's how I grew up. And then you get into either a van or RV or then tour bus situation, and it was just familiar to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Are either of your parents musicians or anyone else in the household musical?
No.
Do you remember?
Although my uncle used to sing "My House," and he claimed that he was the one that wrote it. And it wasn't until I got older and heard it on the radio, I thought somebody had stolen my uncle's song. Quickly learned it was not his song at all. Yeah.
Everyone's got that uncle.
Yep.
Do you remember your earliest inspiration to sing?
Honestly, I think my earliest inspiration when I look back on it was probably the Goofy movie, Powerline. The soundtrack to that movie was insane. Max's whole trip, like I always felt like I was missing out on like that true dad connection.
Right.
So that movie was really deep on this quality time he was getting with his dad, and he just wanted to be this rock star to impress everybody. And like I said, the soundtrack was amazing. So I think that just had a big impression on me at a very young age. And then I just always had a love for music. I played the saxophone. I was
band?
in marching band, jazz band, the whole 9 yards.
Cool.
Huge video game lover and loved all the music in that. And so I still remember the first Christmas I got a CD player, and I got Michael Jackson and POD on CD. I used to jam them all the time. And then when LimeWire and Napster started becoming a thing, it
Sure.
was trying to find that friend that actually had a computer at his house and internet.
Right.
I'm like, hey, do you think I could stay the night? Go to Walmart, get that pack of blank CDs, and just spend all night thinking of any song I could think of off the top of my head so I could make a mix CD and play it on my CD player.
It was such a funny period. If you were involved in sourcing music in that way,
yeah.
you would end up with some pretty weird shit.
Oh yeah, there's some random stuff on there.
And
not
like
all
also
songs either, just some random audio clips
like
that
mislabeled,
yeah.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
Kids these days will never know.
No, they won't. And that was the beginning of, a lot of artists were complaining back then that you need to buy the CD and the album to really support artists. And I understood that. And I wasn't even allowed to leave the house to go to my first concert till I was a freshman in high school.
Which is a little ironic.
Mm-hmm.
2 years later,
I'd be on the road. Yeah.
Doing it.
Yeah.
So you had like an ensemble musical experience, like you marching band, concert band in school.
Yeah.
Guitar?
No, I always wanted to, but I just never got a guitar.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We got to hook you up with a guitar.
Yeah, I never got a guitar or a bass or drums. And, the school had those programs where you could rent the instrument from the school. But the schools...
But still no guitar.
Still no guitar. The schools didn't have a guitar or bass or drums. But you have that, once I got in the jazz band, where you have to try out, see if you're good enough. And I felt so accomplished that I made the jazz band. Then you have the kid that's in the jazz band playing. We had a drummer and a bass player, but they own their instruments and were taking like private classes outside of school. And so they were able to keep practicing their instrument within the school by being in the jazz band. I could
never afford private lessons or any of that
Same.
crap. I was lucky to get
couldn't get the
magazine
instrument
subscription.
I think I actually got a guitar one Christmas, but it was a First Act. Do you remember that?
Sure.
That brand at Walmart?
It's funny that, but the custom shop stuff was used by a bunch of metal bands.
Oh.
They made a bunch of high-end custom shop guitars.
See, if I really wanted to, I'm sure I could have learned on a First Act, but I was like, this sounds like crap. I guess I'll just stick to my saxophone. And then just ended up singing in a band.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And what was your very first band? High school kids, like friends from school?
Yeah. So my very first group ever, we ended up being called Bless the Fall, and they're still active, still out there doing it to this day. And I found them through a website called azpunk.com, where essentially it was a website version of the little sheets of paper that you would pick off from like a Guitar Center that said, looking for a bassist.
Right.
So this was like kind of an online thread for looking for members. And there was a band that I saw that wanted a singer. I'm like, why not? I want to do it. Let's try it out. I ended up making the cut. They wanted me in the band, and there was some roller coaster times between that. They lived about 40 minutes away from where I lived. I didn't own a vehicle. None of them wanted to pick me up. So I actually was booted from the band for a certain amount of time when we were still on the local level.
Right.
Because I couldn't make it up to practices. And then I was working in the drive-thru of Sonic one day, America's favorite drive-in.
Yeah.
And they pulled up to order something.
Us.
Yeah, sponsor us. They pulled up to the drive-thru window and said, we want you back in the band, but you got to come with us right now. I took off my headset, climbed through the drive-thru window and got in the car.
Is that right?
Yeah, we just took off.
Like a fucking scene from Fast Times.
Yeah. They're like, we got to do this. We want you back. I'm like, all right, let's do it. Got back in the band, did our first album, which was called His Last Walk, started doing some touring. Right around this time is when I found out I was going to have my first kid, my daughter. And you're young. I was very young, very, very young. My mom was younger than I was, but I wasn't ready for that. And that turned into me second guessing as music what I should do. I feel like I'm going to miss out on a lot of time. Obviously, I'm just starting out. There's no money coming in.
Of course.
None of that. So I found myself on tour, on my first overseas tour with Silverstein. We were splitting a bus, and all those guys had their laptops, and I was trying to go to the little shops to buy a calling card just to check on things at home. And
Go to the internet cafe.
yeah, and it started getting to me in a bad way, and that's where I developed a drinking problem, was on that tour. Like, I started just filling up water bottles full of stuff, because I remember the first week somebody asked me if I wanted a drink, and I'm like, I'm not old enough. They said, here you are.
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay. And I just started downing it and decided to make the decision that maybe this is not for me. I think I'm headed down a dark path here. And I flew home. I left the tour. I went home and tried to be with my daughter. And the band said that they supported the decision and I could come back when I was ready. And, they kept on, and power to them. They kept on the tour. They finished it out. They figured it out. It was all of our first tours overseas. So the fact that it got too much for me, and I made them have an even more difficult time, and they figured out how to get through it. Super proud of them for doing that. And I came home and tried to figure out my own life, and they decided to move forward without me.
Sure.
And I had made buddies with a guitar player in a band called A Skylit Drive. His name was Joey. And they had gotten rid of their singer, and we were kind of having a little bit of conversation about me potentially joining their group. So I'm like, all right, man, I had my shot. Did I screw it up? What am I going to do at home? Let me see if I can still do this again. So we were having conversations about me writing some songs, and I go to text him. And this was like on my old little Nokia Cricket wireless phone, whatever it was back then. And I guess I text the wrong Joey. And the Joey I ended up texting was Escape the Fate's manager, Joey. And Bless the Fall, before we went overseas, had just wrapped up a tour with Escape the Fate. And so Joey, the manager, ends up asking me, why are you looking for songs? What's going on? Aren't you supposed to be on tour overseas right now? So I explained to him the whole story. He hits me with a story about how they need somebody to fill in for these 3 shows coming up, which was a festival in Vegas called Extreme Thing, Bamboozle, and like a random headliner at Chain Reaction. So I'm like, okay. He's like, if we put you on a flight, you can come rehearse with the guys, and if they like you, we'd like you to fill in. I'm like, okay, let's do it. Flew out there, did the shows. We played Bamboozle. Somebody asked to sit down with the band and interview them. They asked me if I wanted to do it too. I said, no, I'm just filling in.
Right.
I'm not here to do interviews with these guys. And I still remember they asked my drummer, Robert, the question. So is Craig from Bless the Fall going to be your new singer? And he goes, if he wants to. And
it's funny
I've
that
been with him ever since.
Time, at that age, you were like, I'm fill-in guy. You like a lot of people I think would maybe have gotten puffed up or had a little bit of false confidence.
Like, no, man, I'm just filling in, and I'm not here permanently. And there was even a moment of time that I feel like I convinced them to get their old singer back. So there was like, I can't remember the time frame because it was so long ago, but it might have been a month, it might have been 2 months, but there was a time where they said they were going to get him back and thanked me for filling in for the shows. And that's when I went back to Arizona and formed an entirely new band called The Word Alive. And they're still out there today, active. So good for them. And then I got the call to come back. It was like, we need you to come back. And then all the cards just aligned, because on the tour that Bless the Fall did with Escape the Fate, the last day of that tour, we played the Key Club in LA. And John Feldman, who's now my brother-in-law, was attending this show. And I was doing the jump off the balcony thing that I used to do a lot when I was a kid. And I guess it made an impression on him. And he caught wind that singer of that band would now join this other band that had all these cool guitar solos and stuff. And he was like, I want to be the one that's doing that record. Bring them out here. So when I got the call to come back, we were immediately in the studio with John Feldman doing our This War Is Ours album.
Right.
And then it was off to the races after that.
And that album did just fine for you guys.
It did just fine, yeah. But a lot of, still to this day, I deal with being the new guy. It's been 18 years.
FNG.
Yeah. Still the fill-in.
So we covered a lot there, and this is a story that I feel like you've probably told a lot. I want to back up and ask a few questions. If there's anything that you are not comfortable talking about, just
it's fine.
Say so. On our way over, you told me about getting sober. Was drinking ever an issue of any kind before you started performing and touring? Like,
It
or were you just an
was
average kid, like sneaking a beer at a party or
I
whatever?
would say average kid. I mean, there was a lot of running away from home. It wasn't like the
Sure.
best home situation at times. Um, and those times that I would run away, I'd always end up at somebody's house that was a little older, and they had 40s of Mickeys around. So I think I was sneaking a beer here and there, but it was never an issue where I was like waking up with the shakes and needed to have a drink to feel
Right.
normal.
Just maybe having a hornet here and there.
Yeah, until I started hitting the road, and it turned into this time travel machine where it was like I started not feeling happy on the road anymore. I started missing home a lot, and this was a way to just kind of disassociate and turn all my bad thoughts into good thoughts, and whatever have you. It turned into a bad addiction, and with the escape the fate stuff and just always constantly being looked at under a microscope and judged because I'm not the original guy, it just got even worse. It was a coping mechanism, and it was a very self-destructive coping mechanism that I'm
Right.
happy to put to rest.
As a kid, because you were a kid, it sounds like we have similar life experiences. I felt like an adult at a young age.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
doing adult shit. I never had a curfew. I did what I wanted. Always. Never rules. I mean, it's kind of business as usual now for me. Like, I'm still doing that.
Yeah.
I'm just more disciplined now.
Mhm.
Were you intimidated? Like, did you feel like a grown up at a young age, first of all?
Oh, definitely. And now that my own kids are getting older, I'm like, why did I think I was such hot shit? And that old at that age, I was just a child.
Right.
I was just a kid.
Yes.
So you get older, you get wiser, and you learn how to cut yourself some slack. So sometimes on those mentally hard days, I'm like giving that young kid me like a hug in the back of my head. Like, it's all good, dude. It'll be fine. You'll work
How
it
old
out.
were you on that European tour?
18.
18.
Yeah, I think I had just turned 18, I believe.
If you could tell yourself, your 18-year-old self, anything today, what would you tell him?
Today?
Yeah.
I'd be like, don't drink that beer, man. That ain't gonna help you at all.
I mean, it did get you
Learn
to
how
where
to meditate.
That's right. It did get you to where you are now.
Oh,
in a
yeah,
roundabout way.
and it's tough. You can't always live in the past, because if there's so many things that I'm very happy with and content about
Sure.
with today. And would I still be exactly where I am today if anything about the past was different?
Right.
Would I have learned from all those mistakes and be the person that I am today if I didn't make those mistakes? And you can never take things back. You can always just look at bettering yourself in the present and making every tomorrow a brighter tomorrow. So that's all that I'm focused on right now.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
You came home from that tour pretty humbled.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But it sounds like you got right to work, so you weren't discouraged.
I wasn't discouraged. I was humbled and felt very driven. But I think I needed to hit that reset button at that time.
And when you stepped in for the 3 fill-in shows, where was your head at? Were you like, well, this would be cool, do a few shows?
I mean, my head was, I had this opportunity with my Bless the Fall boys, and I kind of gave it up, and I have this other opportunity in front of me now. And a lot of people don't get a first chance. Clearly, I'm getting a second chance, and I cannot let that go to waste.
Right.
So I just stuck it out, no matter how hard I was being judged or ridiculed, or, oh, you suck in this band, or, man, the band got so much worse after you joined. It was like, but I'm here. The band wanted me. We're doing it. Fans are having fun at the shows. I'm still doing what I love to do, which is creating music.
And this is early 2000s.
Oh, this is early 2000s, and still going to this day.
Right. But
it was so that the This War Is Ours record with Escape came out in 2008.
Right.
So I was with them working on it in 2007.
Social media has made a lot of things worse.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you read an article, you form an opinion, you talk to your friends at school about it or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Now everyone is just shots fired.
Mm-hmm.
And people are not afraid to just
No.
whatever.
Keyboard warriors.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
How did you deal with that? Because
Oh man,
fuck
back
that.
then a lot of this. That's how I dealt with it. Grandpa's old cough medicine.
Right.
Just forget about it, disassociate, it's fine. But you know, you get older and you realize what's your opinion on what you're doing? Because that's the only opinion that matters.
Sure.
Who cares?
But you're young.
Yeah, I'm young. I don't know any of this then.
Right.
So I'm just like, oh, I suck and fuck these people and
You were just taking it.
I was just taking it, yeah.
The dynamics of being in a band, especially joining a band, it sounds like you knew those guys a little bit, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
But not in the way that you know people that you are traveling with in a van or a bus.
Yeah.
You get to know people
Very
in ways
quickly
that maybe you didn't want to. What was that dynamic like? Was there hazing?
No, there wasn't any hazing that happened when I first joined. And you know,
Later.
what the problem is when I first joined is everybody in that group at the time was partying kind of more than I was at that time. So I kind of just kicked my party gear into overdrive at that point to kind of like match the level that they were at. Which wasn't the smartest move, I would imagine, but it just meant we were all kind of just hanging out and having a good time together. But the first few tours I did were difficult on me because I had broken my ankle. So my first tours with Escape the Fate, I was on some crutches, and
what did you do?
That wasn't too fun. Well, I was actually playing a gig in Arizona with the Word Alive, drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Decided once the headliner band went on that we were all going to go stage dive, group stage dive. Let's do it. I run out of the green room and I see a stack of speakers and I decide I'm going to climb on top of the speakers, hang from this rafter, and I'm going to swing into the crowd. It's going to be so sick.
Sure.
And I swung into the crowd and the crowd caught the top half of my body, but I had swung out too far and the bottom half of my body hit the floor. So I broke my talus bone, which I guess is like a little bone in your ankle enclosed by all the other bones, but the shock went right up and broke that one. So I tried to stand up and I was like, oh, that doesn't feel right. And just kept rocking out. And then I was like, okay, this is starting to hurt real bad. Got driven to the hospital. It started swelling up. And I had like a week and a half before I flew to Australia, which was like my first official tour with Escape the Fate.
At least flights are really easy on your body.
Oh, yeah. So they put a cast on me and the doctor goes, no, I don't recommend any flying. You know, it can swell up in the cast. And I looked at him. I'm like, I'm flying to Australia. He's like, yeah, you shouldn't do that. I was like, okay. They went to Australia.
It's a brutal flight if your bones are not broken.
It's a long flight. Yeah, so long ass flight in a cast. So it didn't heal right. It's still not healed right.
Oh, that sucks.
If I'm wearing low cut socks and some pants that you can see my ankles, it looks like I got a bow-legged ankle.
I have 2 giant scars up the sides because I had a spiral fracture. My toes were back here inside of the fold of my leg.
That doesn't sound. That sounds a lot worse than mine.
A flight to Portland isn't good for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, the long flights are not cool for me.
Yeah.
When things started to roll, you know, how quickly were you able to feel like you were taking care of business?
You know, I'd say it's when we got our first like decent amount publishing check or advance, I guess, where I was like, okay, this maybe I can do music and this can work out.
Maybe I can buy a cell phone now.
Yeah. Maybe I can get an actual cell phone and, you know, buy some clothes for my daughter and get an actual place and make sure she's got furniture and she's fed. And then it was like, I always wanted to be on the road working so I could provide, but then being on the road was always tough because I was away. So it's just always this constant battle in my brain of, is what I'm doing right? Is this what I should be doing? But it's just such a passion of mine. I just love playing music so much. And on the worst days, I would look out there and I'd see somebody in the front row singing along to the words of a song that I wrote. And I would see myself at my first concert where I was like, I wonder if I could do that. So in that way, it's kind of like a magical experience, and it, really kept me going. And I tell that to people all the time, like at meet and greets, or like if we didn't have people to play for, we wouldn't still be a band.
Right.
So thank you for being a fan.
Be a lot more challenging.
Oh yeah, show would be a lot more challenging. So it's a lot of the times fans can keep you around.
That's everything.
Yeah.
Well, if you were cruising all the way up to Seattle, which is a tough get for, there's not a lot around. Like you get to Portland and Seattle, maybe you go to Spokane. Maybe how many times have you played Spokane?
A number of times back in the day. It's weird because sometimes you'll do tours, you'll start noticing that certain cities you've gone to a lot are now being skipped for whatever reason.
Right.
I'm not sure why that is, but if I'm not mistaken, it's the knitting factory that's in Spokane. Yeah. Okay.
I think there's one in Boise also.
There is. Yeah. I used to go there all the time too.
Pretty fun room.
But I haven't been there in a while. So I don't know.
Right.
Who knows?
Is your dad still around?
Dad's still around. Yeah.
Do you ever have conversations with, are you close? Do you speak?
No.
Yeah.
No, not really. I feel like I'm the only one that speaks to him out of the siblings that I grew up with. And right now it's like a, hey, happy birthday.
Yeah.
Or hey, Merry Christmas. And that's kind of, where it's at right now.
Right. Only because you sort of referenced it earlier. With the goofy, father son kind of storyline. How did your approach to fatherhood get coursed through your own experience?
Well, I'm obviously learning, like I guess any parent would.
Yeah.
But I know on the surface that you should always want to try to be the best parent that you can be. So you want to be better than the parents that came before you. And I always hear my mom and my grandmother's voice in my head on what I should be doing is right. And I was lucky enough to spend some time with them very, very recently. And it gets really tough because my son, he's 11, but he's still pretty young, and he started getting emotional, when we started saying goodbye and I had to start driving to the next city. And that's always really tough, but I just make sure that I talk to them and I communicate with them as often as I can. And technology has made that a lot easier, for sure. We have FaceTime and all that stuff, but it's the one-on-one time that's the most important. And that's when I want to have the serious conversations with them. So I was lucky enough to be there during the time that he was getting out of school, and I made sure I was there to pick him up and walked him home. And we had that, kind of dad-son walk and talk moment, and took him out. We walked around the mall and saw a movie, and just those physically together times that you really remember. And I just always tell them, if what I chose to do as a career should show you anything, it was I didn't believe in myself at all. I still struggled to believe in myself at times. And you got to get used to that. We're all just trying to figure out who we are at the end of the day.
It's a tough story to communicate to a kid.
But I'm just hoping that I've showed you that you can do anything that you want to do in life, because no part of me thought that I'd be able to even get in a band or get on tour. And here I am approaching 20 years of touring, and I'm not the biggest band in the world. I haven't achieved the biggest amount of success, but this is a lot further than I ever believed that I could go. So you can do whatever you want to do.
Sonic either.
That's right. I'm not working at Sonic anymore.
You gotta start somewhere.
They used to make you wear the skates. What? And I told them I couldn't skate, and they did not believe me. And it took me busting my ass with a full like $50 order of Sonic back then too, which was like, that's a lot of food.
Yeah.
It took that happening that they were like, all right, you don't got to wear the skates.
$50 is like 2 cheeseburgers now.
Oh yeah. It's ridiculous. And maybe a drink at happy hour.
What kept you motivated to go for 20 years with the concept of I'm not good enough to be doing this nagging the back of your mind.
Well, my kids being proud of me and thinking it's really cool what their dad does, that had a big influence on me. The fans, when people come up and they say, "Oh man, this really touched me. This really helps me get through this and that." That always feels good. It's like paying it forward almost.
Right.
Um, you telling me that I helped you is actually helping me. So thank you for sharing that story with me. And then, until COVID hit, a lot of liquid confidence that got me through it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people got real loose during COVID.
They did.
I buckled down. So I ended up holding 2 full-time jobs, and my second full-time job, as a fucking old guy, I was loading UPS like freight trailers.
Oh
Yeah.
shit, yeah.
I saw what America was ordering online. And I'll tell you right now, it
I
was a
can't
lot
imagine.
it was a lot of power tools.
Really?
Fuck, man, a lot of power tools,
I
because
wouldn't have
people were
imagined
like,
power tools.
well, people are like, what am I gonna do? I'm
Oh, I'm
gonna
gonna
go out
build
in the
something.
garage, or I'm gonna remodel my bathroom.
Yeah.
And I imagine a lot of those things are pretty janky.
Yeah.
But the explosion of like do it yourself stuff. But the other thing that I loaded a lot of, cases full, like people were ordering cases of booze.
Really?
People were getting
Just to their door.
soggy.
Hmm.
They were getting soft in the head, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were delivered right to their door.
Boredom,
I
I
guess
guess.
so. Gnarly. Answer or not, was there a moment, like, this isn't a meeting, so you don't have to
Yeah,
go
yeah.
into it, but was there a moment where you're like, stop, this is it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there was that moment. I don't know how real I can get with it, but I'd say the first month and a half that all that was happening, everybody was unsure what it was or when everything was going to open back up, all that stuff. I was hitting it pretty hard. And now I wasn't on the road. So I didn't have an excuse. I wasn't being babysat. There wasn't crew of the band making sure, where's the singer? We got to get him back to the bus. You
You
know what I
couldn't
mean? It
sleep
was
until 3 o'clock on the
exactly.
bus.
So it's like I'm turning on Netflix, watching a show, and well, I'll just make myself a drink. And then before I know it, the bottle's gone. And it was terrible. So after about a month and a half, I had enough. And I mean, I had like really enough. Like I was done with myself. Like I'm like, I gotta quit cold turkey or something. I was having one of those days where I couldn't keep anything down, praying to the porcelain god, just in my head, visions, voices, all that stuff. And I was like, I'm done. Grabbed a plastic bag, jumped in my pool, couldn't do it. Um, Struggled through the rest of the day and ended up calling a bunch of people that I knew. I called John Fellman at the time because he's been sober over 30 years, and he was talking to me, giving me some advice. And called my manager. I'm like, you got to come get me, man. I'm freaking out. Like this is it. If I haven't hit rock bottom before, I think this is it. And I hate to inconvenience anybody, but I need help. Like I was finally crying out for help, and went to this. I don't even remember what place it was, but I guess it was like some sober facility where everybody's trying to get clean and come down. It was like a room where everybody's sitting in lazy boy chairs and detox center. And I'm walking, pacing back and forth, still couldn't sleep. I hadn't slept for like 4 or 5 days at that point. And this nurse comes over and takes me into a room, and I don't remember what shot they gave me, but it was a shot in this arm and this arm. And it helped me to get to sleep. And I woke up the next day, and that was the day before my birthday, which was April 8th. And that's when I said, I think that's it.
Yeah.
I think you're done. Like you keep drinking like this, you're gonna end up dead or in trouble or something, and it's not worth it anymore. This is not good.
It's incredibly hard to admit anything to, even when you know the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to tell yourself the truth consciously.
Yeah.
It's hard to make that admission to someone else. It's really vulnerable.
Well, you gotta be vulnerable. I mean, even my wife sometimes gets on me if I'm filling out like a a doctor's note, or even if I was still drinking at the time, how many drinks do you have, during the week? That question's on the sheet.
Yeah.
And I would always write in, like, honestly. She would go, why are you saying that? Don't put that. That's too much.
Don't
I'm
put
like,
28.
but this is, I'm looking for help, and this is what I do. If I can't
Right.
be honest, at least when I'm seeking help, when can I be honest?
Right.
So I've always believed you have to be honest about things like that when you're seeking help, because if you're not going to get the help that you need.
Wrong help.
You're going to get the wrong help. Yes.
Which isn't helpful.
Mm-hmm.
How did getting sober go?
Very stressful. Anxiety very high. But you figure it out. It's a lot better than still being on that crutch, for sure.
Right.
You relearn how to do things, and you sit with your feelings. And I mean, I started going out, I was seeing psychiatrists and therapists and trying to get to the root of the problem, which was getting back to when I was young and growing up. And you really start dealing with what the actual issue is, because that's just, you're just self-medicating.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Did it stick the first time you tried?
Sobriety?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, I haven't went back.
Great.
Too scared.
And now you have...
I'm coming up on 5 years.
Awesome.
In April. Yeah.
5 years, that would be the April 7th?
April 8th.
April 8th.
April 8th, yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And you were saying you were sober too, so congratulations to you. Proud of you.
Thanks. Proud of you.
It's not easy.
It's a lot easier now. Now
Yeah,
it holds this very no appeal.
Yeah.
I still dream about cocaine.
Yeah. See, sometimes I have dreams where I wake up and I feel hungover.
Right.
And I don't like it.
No.
And I just treat those as like nice, I look up to higher power. I'm like, thanks for the reminder.
I
don't need that shit anymore.
I never am tempted to drink.
Yeah.
But I still have dreams about doing cocaine. And it's always really fun. But I'm plagued with guilt in my dreams. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, this isn't a meeting. Let's talk about when you got back to work after getting sober, because that is or can be fucking harrowing.
Yeah.
It's a completely different sensory experience.
Oh yeah.
How did it go?
It was a little difficult at first. There was a while there, once we even got back to performing live, where I felt like I couldn't do the heavy, screamy stuff that I could do anymore. It felt very awkward. It did not feel right. I don't feel like it sounded the same. So I kind of had to reteach myself to do it. And I was talking to a friend of mine, Ronnie, who sings for the band Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, who also got sober. And he's like, ever since I got sober, I can't do it anymore. It's like, it's weird. I feel like when I was drinking that it was, helping me to make that sound. And I'm like, maybe I can't do it anymore then. Crap. Oh, well, though.
However, all's well.
All's well. Figured it out. Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Did you get a vocal coach?
No.
There are a bunch of vocal coaches that'll teach you how to scream without hurting yourself.
Yeah. I just kind of felt how I was feeling myself and just readjusted some things and just figured it out. Found out that I probably was just pushing too hard over the course of many, many years.
Sure.
And maybe that's why it wasn't feeling right. Because you get enough of this and you're just wailing.
It didn't feel as bad.
Exactly.
Right.
So you're just going for it. So I think once I wasn't doing that, maybe I was just trying to project way too hard, thinking that that's what I had to do.
At that point, you'd been in the band 12 years?
Yeah, I think we'd already done like a 10-year anniversary tour for 2 albums at that point. And
did you feel any of the old original feelings creeping back in when you were sober and clear-headed walking on stage?
Feelings as like desire to?
No, just like insecurity?
Oh, yeah, definitely. But when you're feeling those things and looking at those things from a clear mind, it's a lot easier to accept the reality of the situation and realize, hey, maybe it's not that big of a deal. And how are you feeling? Or are you stoked with what you're doing? And There's people that are here tonight that want to see you do you. So get up there and do you to the best of your ability. And now, the band has been around for a length of time where we have fans coming to the shows and they're bringing their children. And
That's
I had
amazing.
children young,
Right.
and I think that's so awesome when I can see a parent that grew up coming to our shows with their kid on the shoulder, and it's like, "Oh, I used to rock with these guys, and now I get to take you to see them." And that's a great motivation too, because number one, that's a beautiful thing. It's magical. That's inspiring. And then I think back, I'm like, man, could I imagine if I was still
Right.
raging at these? No, that's ridiculous. That would be so dumb. You sing these songs where it's about trying to inspire people and be the best version of yourself. It's like you gotta at some point in your life you gotta walk the walk if you're gonna talk the talk.
Let's talk about the current EP and tour.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's get to that.
Like, all right, we're moving on from the meeting portion of our
Yeah.
conversation. This is a project it's ongoing project.
Ongoing, yeah, a little side thing. I know we touched on when I first started with Bless the Fall, and then I had The Word Alive. So once I was touring with Escape the Fate for a number of years now, and this was like my one and only, I still missed having that sort of little heavier side to me that I had with Bless the Fall or what I was doing with The Word Alive. So I decided once we had a little bit of downtime that I wanted to put something together. And we had done a tour with a band called Attack Attack, and I made good friends with Caleb Shomo, who's currently out there, ruling the world with Beartooth. And he's like, I got a studio. Why don't you fly out here and we can work on something together? And that was the first Dead Rabbits EP, which I had to come up with a name for the project. We didn't have it at the start.
Right.
And I just tracked it with Caleb at his place. And, we chilled and drove and got some White Castle in snowstorms and just vibed and wrote some music. And it was a great time.
Is there a funnier, deeper story to the name than it rhymes, or is it like someone said your name wrong at Starbucks?
So it's kind of a mix of all of that. So like Donnie Darko is probably in my top 10 favorite movies.
Sure.
I was at the time watching a lot of Gangs of New York, which is another one of my top 10 favorite movies. And in every interview over the years, still to this day, people will hear Mabbitt, they hear Rabbit, and they'll spell it as if you're spelling rabbit, which is Rabbit,
Right.
one T. So they'll spell my last name just one T, but I'm Mabbitt.
Right.
So when I was trying to think about it, because Caleb's like, well, this is kind of a solo thing, so why don't you just call it, Craig Mabbitt? And I started imagining what the music sounded like and maybe getting on tour with my peers. And am I going to set up a backdrop that just says
my name?
Craig like that? Nah, that doesn't seem right. So I thought of, you know what? I'll name it Dead Rabbits, but I'll spell rabbit with two T's. And that'll be like the little play on the spelling that'll show that, hey, this is my thing. But it's like a group name.
Rad.
And that's how it came together.
And the collaboration has evolved?
Yeah, so over the years, there's been, multiple people in and out. Usually it's somebody that's in Escape the Fate with me at the time, because whenever Escape has time off, hey, now we can do something like this.
Right.
Let's do this. Let's play a quick local show, or maybe we can go out and do a little week run. But it just turned into this really nice creative outlet for me, because once you get to a certain level, it's like there's so many cooks in the kitchen now during the creative process. And so they're just, I was always itching for something else at the end of the day. Not to say that I wasn't proud of what we were doing, but you get used to hearing no a lot when you're throwing ideas at the table. And
of course.
So now I have a collection of songs over here that I really liked, or maybe I really like this lyric and I still want to use it. Well, why can't I do it for the other project?
Awesome.
So it's a good creative outlet for me to have, and very happy. I actually got involved with Howard Benson again, because I got invited to do guest vocals on a song. And he was like, love working with you, Craig. It'd be great to have you in here again. What are you doing with Escape? What are you doing with this? I explained to him that I have this Dead Rabbits project, and it might be cool to have, a real push behind it, because we just always got used to self-releasing stuff. He's like, okay, well, let's try to get together and see what can come out of it. So we met up with him, demoed out one track. He really liked it. We decided to make an EP, demoed out some songs, released some songs. They were happy with the reaction
Awesome.
to it, and it turned into a full length 11-track album that just dropped at the first date of this tour that we're on right now.
And how far into the tour are you right now?
So I think this would be show 4.
Show 4.
Yeah. So at the beginning, but it does feel like I've been out for a month already.
How long is the tour?
I believe the end date is May 4th.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite a lengthy one.
6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
All the way around the country?
All the way around the country, a couple Canada dates.
Nice.
I know it ends in Colorado Springs on May the 4th be with you.
I'm gonna reach out and ask how crossing the border goes for you.
Yeah. I'm interested to know how that's going to go this tour as well.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm already practically getting a cavity search every time I go there because I have work permits in my old passport and they can see all the old records.
Mm-hmm.
So crossing the border has always been weird. And I don't have any, like, I don't have a record or anything. Not that I've never done anything wrong, but I don't have a police record. It's just,
I guess it just depends who you get. That's what I've dealt with over the years of crossing borders. I mean, sometimes you drive right through, nobody exits the vehicle.
Right.
Sometimes you exit the vehicle, you're out, in and out in 10, 15 minutes, and sometimes you're there for multiple hours.
That's right. Well, I hope it goes smooth.
So do I. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And what comes next?
So currently in the middle of finishing the new Escape the Fate album. So I was able to finish up about 7 songs vocally and somewhat musically. There's still a lot to do, but 7 songs that I know we're going to want on there.
Awesome.
So going right back in the studio as soon as this tour ends. And then it's a couple festival fly dates like Sonic Temple, Louder Than Life. We're doing some Warp dates. There's some talks of going back to Japan. And just starting to plan out the release of the album. So I got to wrap it up as soon as this tour is done, go out and do those festivals and stuff, and start planning the release of the next ETF record.
Great. And that should be this year? You think it'll come out this year, or will it be a 26 release?
I know for sure songs for the record will start coming out this year.
Great.
That I know for sure. So it's just a conversation about how do we want to release this album?
Right.
Do we do it slowly? Do we do just singles? See how they're going and just every other month release a new song? Which I'm kind of into that idea. We've been talking about it internally. It's just how it goes today.
You are the last generation of album bands.
Yeah. You release the whole album and it's like, people are like, oh yeah, I heard it. Sick. And then they're on to the next one. So you gotta keep the engagement going in some way, shape, or form.
Do you find that like I'm still an album person? Like I like an album. I like an EP. Like I like a single's fine, but it's just like, well, what else?
The possibility of exposure is a lot greater today.
Right.
You have more opportunity, but that kind of works against itself at the same time because there's so much out there now. But I remember going to the record store just like I used to go to the GameStop if it was a midnight release of this game I wanted to play.
Sure.
You'd physically get it in your hands and I would go and listen to it and read through the lyric book and I'd know every word by the time I was done listening to the album. And then you see they're coming to town and it was great.
Right.
And I just don't feel like that's how it is anymore. Unfortunate.
Yeah. But it seems like live music is thriving.
Oh, yeah.
You still are active. You have a career, and what a time.
Exactly.
I feel.
So what is there to be upset about?
Sure. It's peculiar.
Yeah.
Like the singles. Like I can't imagine Guns N' Roses saying, well, leading up to Appetite, well, we're just going to release a single every month.
Yeah.
Ship out some 45s and just go out on the road with Aerosmith or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just not probably going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
What certainly didn't.
Yeah.
You know what? My life is better for having being connected with you today
Thank you.
and this conversation.
That's great. Mine as well.
And it's nice to look you in your clear eyes. I'm glad you have them.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you have yours.
Thanks. I brought them.
Yeah.
I brought them out today.
Especially with the camelback incident.
That's right. I wish that I could
What
say
year
that
was
was
that?
the end. That was 1991.
Oh, the camelback incident of 91.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like those giant statues of the horses downtown.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I have all kinds of like pictures of me like in those fountains and on top of the surfing on top of those like all kind, just like, you know,
You're an animal.
Well, I was a buffoon.
Yeah.
I was a buffoon.
It happens.
I wish you all of the greatest things always.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that.
I hope that we cross paths. You know, you never know.
I hope so too. I'm sure we will.
I'll be out festival season this year. Not in America. We don't get any action in America.
It's getting there.
I play an Ugly Kid Joe. So you talk about your fans bringing their kids to shows.
Yeah.
We have grandkids coming to shows. It's wild. Because, like we have fans that are 60. And, I mean, my sister was a grandma when she was 40.
Wow.
You know, so I get it.
Yeah. Music transcends, you know.
I hope we cross paths.
I hope so too. Thank you very much for having me today.
Come on up here.
Bring it in. Thanks for talking.